This is the debrief video for the special meeting on May 27th, 2022 for the township, and normal opening for special meeting, call to order, invocation and pledge, roll call, approval of agenda. The first public comment, we had a few things in public comment, noting that one person thought we were going too fast in this process, which is a legitimate concern. And there were some questions that were directed more to questions that the board should ask the candidate. And Tracy, the only candidate that got information into the board packets and that showed up to the meeting out of the four that had qualified, because there were 3 on Indeed that lived in the township, and I messaged them all, whereas there were 15 on Indeed, other ones that did not live in the township. And so she spoke at that point. And then we moved on to our appointment of the township clerk, which was our first decision item. And the different options were discussed, obviously in an important decision. And so really I was presenting 4 bad options, 4 options that I don't like any one of the 4 options. Technically I could throw in a 5th, but that one was so bad that I eliminated it completely. And the one was to not pay anything for a while we didn't have a clerk. Obviously not a great option. The second one was to put me in as an interim to span that space, which I think would have been decent. It doesn't seem great. It's not a great position to be in. I would obviously catch some heat over that. But then there was a disagreement in the township officials about whether it's legal or not. And even though our lawyers thought that it was and had signed off on it on MCL 41.58, there's no reason to have that inter-office dispute and potential legal dispute, and it puts people in a bad position. So we moved on from that. The other option was to have Lori stay on as the clerk officially while she wasn't the clerk and she was at a different job, so the deputy could perform duties. Obviously it puts her in a bad position, and then it's very odd to have someone that is the clerk and is getting paid for that but actually isn't here and is working somewhere else. So a very odd position. There was the 1970s Attorney General opinion that says the resignation of an official could be treated as a death, which allows the deputy to continue, but that's never used. It's just an Attorney General opinion from the 1970s. And then, of course, there is the fast appointment, which is the one that we ended up doing. I certainly initially didn't want it, but once the interim thing was taken off of the table, and that's the next best from my opinion. And so the only person that we had as a proposal was Tracy DeMars. And so there were some more questions, some of those suggested questions asked of her. There was discussion amongst the board. And then we voted, and it ended up going through. So she is the new clerk, started on June 1st, because Lori's resignation is through the 31st. Her resignation is on the 31st. Next, we moved on to the addition of the clerk, Choice 1 bank accounts, and the clerk, the Michigan class accounts, and the deputy. And so those went pretty normal. The clerk on the Choice 1 and the Michigan class went through pretty normal operations. Lee had some questions on the deputy clerk of why I was suggesting that we say deputy clerk as appointed by the clerk, because we don't have the deputy clerk's name yet, even though Tracy has said it's going to be Lexi, but she can't appoint a deputy clerk until she is sworn in. She can't be sworn in until the 1st, until her start date. And having these motions in place just allows us to get this information to the bank that the board has approved these things, so they can add people to the accounts. But I think it would have been odd to officially say a name in there before it technically could be decided. And so I written it up essentially with that variable in there. So we did both those. Those went through. Next, we moved on to our second public comment, and there was also some discussion there and a little bit more of a discussion as I like to occur in the second public comment. In the first public comment, you're trying to talk about agenda items. People say they're 3 minutes, and you get to the decision items. In the second public comment, I'm more open to a discussion, of course. And so, which is somewhat unusual, but I think it's good. I think a lot of public meetings, a lot of government meetings, people come away feeling like they haven't been able to say what they want to say, and I don't think that's good. I think it's better for people to have been able to say what they wanted to say, and I think everyone feels better, and I think the discussion leads to better outcomes. And so there was some comments there about if people were being insulted or not, and that type of thing. And then we moved on to the adjournment, and that, of course, went through. And Lexi, the deputy clerk right now, was there taking the minutes for the first time in a meeting like this, and she did very well on doing the roll call votes for everything. I do a lot of roll call votes. You should do it on financial things, and then I like doing it on anything that someone may vote against, which is a lot of things because people have choices, and that way it's easier and can be recorded if anyone is voting against something. And so I do a lot of roll call votes, and I think the meeting went decently well. I think people have and have had legitimate concerns, and I think those are being addressed, and at least the reasons for the decisions, and these idea of the different options. I haven't had anyone with a criticism that was like, oh, here's option number 5, even though because I eliminated the 1, but in reality be option number 6 that would work out so much better, and or say which of these other bad options that they would like. And so they're difficult decisions for sure, and they're hard places to be in. But if anyone has any other questions, thoughts, ideas, comments, concerns, feel free to reach out. My direct line is area code 231-332-6700. My email is supervisor@daltontownship.org. Thanks.